All right, do me a favor before this starts. Please find your section 1.1 notes page from the last couple of days. And I want you to turn to the front page where we started our notes on the first day of class. So on the first day of class, we talked about what a function is. Please remember that a function is a specific relation where each input has exactly one output. And then we talked a little bit about function notation, but we didn't quite finish it up. So really quickly, we're going to finish up these notes. We're going to do a quick review of average rate of change, and then you guys will be off to practice. So in this example that we have here, it says let g of t be a function that represents the number of people in line for a food truck t hours after opening. First things first, there is a typo on here, so please change this to an n. When you see something like this, it's really important that you start by figuring out what your input and your output are. So in this case, we have hours. Time is almost always going to be your input. So on this line, please put t, which represents hours, okay? So our x value, our input is hours, and then our output is gonna be the number of people in line for a food truck. So down here we have our function notation statements. As a quick refresher, the number that's inside the parentheses right here represents the x or the input. And then this would represent the y or the output. So in our example, we said that the input is the number of hours since opening. So in this example right here, this statement is telling us 5 hours after opening, there are 34 people in line. Again, because our output is number of people in line. So there are 34 people in line. On this next example, actually, let's go over and do this one really quickly. So on this example, we have an input right here of 0 hours, and we have the input of 3 hours, and we know that these two things are equal. So in order to interpret this statement, we would say there are an equal number of people in line at 0 and 3 hours. This last example, feel free to pause and try it on your own. We have an input of 4 and an input of 6. So 4 hours, 6 hours, and we have a greater than sign. So similar to example C, I can say there are more people in line after 4 hours than 6 hours. So when you get to your practice assignment, the front page is going to have you practice this right here. And then the back page is going to have you practice your average rate of change information. So remember, for your average rate of change, that is this formula right here, where you are finding your x1, y1, your x2, y2, and plugging it into this formula right here. A big thing to remember is to make sure that you line up your points correctly. So if -5 goes first, the x value that belongs to -5 needs to go underneath it. As you're working on that there is an answer key up front that you can use to check your answers. If you finish that review, turn it in. Otherwise, I want you to work on it at home and bring it completed to class on Friday, where I will answer any questions that you may have about the assignment. Please remember that I am available 2nd and 7th. I'm also in the math lab 4th period. There are other teachers in their 3rd, 6th, and 5th period. And then you're also welcome to come to study group this Thursday/Friday at lunch in my room. Otherwise, make sure that you're on task for the sub and that you've completed your district pre-assessment, and I will see you in class on Friday.